ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ Namaste, all of you. Hope all of you have been doing well over the week. Welcome back to the next session of reading aloud from Poojya Swamiji's Gita Home Study. In the last capsule, Poojya Swamiji was saying there are two types of problems. One has its solution outside the problem, whereas the other has its solution within the problem itself. So we'll pick up the thread using this as the cue. Swamiji goes on to say, you may then ask, how can I recognize that I do not have a problem? It seems to be one more problem adding to the ones I already have. But is it? Problem of self non-acceptance is not there because in the vision of Vedanta, the self is acceptable. What else do you want really? The only problem a human being has is self non acceptance. Therefore, you are the problem and you are the solution. This is Pujya Swamiji's favorite expression. Now, your pursuit becomes one of knowing yourself, and it can be a game, fun all the way. This is teaching. A discriminative analysis of dharma, artha, and kama leads you to the fundamental human problem. Once this human problem has been discerned, you will take special steps to resolve it, even though you may continue to pursue artha, kama, and dharma. The solution to this fundamental problem is called moksha. Moksha is not an equivalent to salvation, as is commonly thought, nor is it some kind of accomplishment other than yourself. As freedom from something, however, moksha could be considered a negative accomplishment of sorts. Nevertheless, there is nothing more positive than moksha. Once we say freedom, the question is freedom from what? The answer is simply freedom from something I do not want. No one wants freedom from what he or she wants. Therefore, no one wants freedom from artha, securities, and kama, pleasures. One wants artha, kama, and a little bit of dharma plus moksha. Moksha is not freedom from artha or kama. What artha provides, moksha cannot provide. But what moksha provides cannot be provided by artha, kama, and dharma combined. A person who has moksha also has the freedom to pursue the other three human ends, namely artha, kama, and dharma, if he or she chooses so. Very, very, very important. This is real freedom and not freedom from these pursuits. Artha and kama are for one's own sake. Who undertakes these pursuits? The person called Purusha in Sanskrit, meaning any person young or old, man or woman, Indian or American. This Purusha, the person, is the one who is after Artha and Kama. A human being never undertakes a deliberate activity without having a purpose. Even involuntary actions have a purpose. Here, we are talking only about those actions that are voluntary. Voluntary, deliberate actions always presuppose a desirer whose desire is never for the action as such, but for the result, the object of desire. There is always some end in view. An object that you cannot become, that you have, an object that you have cannot become an object of desire if you know you have it. However, you may have something and not recognize that you have it. Therefore, it may become an object of your desire. So, the clause, if you know you have it, is important here. For instance, you cannot desire a head over your shoulders since you already have one. Even if you desire so, no one can fulfill it, not even the Lord. In spite of all your devotion and prayers, if you were to ask the Lord why He has not fulfilled your desire, He could only say, I cannot give you what you already have in spite of my knowledge, power, or resources. The incapacity to give you a head over shoulders is because you are asking for something you already have. How can God give you one? If you want one more head, being God, He can give you a second head. Although I do not know how a second head is going to help you if the one you already have has not helped you. But He can give it to you. You will have to tell Him, of course, where you would like to have it. However, do not ask Him to give you a head over your shoulders. What you have, He cannot give you. Although you cannot desire an object that you know you have, you can always desire an object that you do not have. There are many things that you do not have, such as green card, new house, another job, promotion, wife, husband, child, a trip to a particular place. Anything you do not have, you can desire. Thus, what you do not have can become an object of your desire. Without a purpose, there is no effort, no deliberate activity. Therefore, the Purusha, the person, undertakes activities for accomplishing different ends, mainly artha and kama, but also dharma. If this is so, there is a very important question to be asked. Do I want artha and kama for the sake of artha and kama themselves? The answer to this question is what distinguishes the entire Vedic vision of a human life from one's usual way of looking at it. Is karma for its own sake? Is it for the sake of pleasure? Is it just for fun? If so, then with or without it, you are the same. You go for it just because you go for it. In other words, it is nothing more than a fancy. But is this really the case? Are artha and kama, which you seek in life, for their own sake, or are they for your sake? The Veda says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Every object of my desire is for my sake alone. You only desire what you know. You do not desire an object that is unknown to you. For instance, you do not desire for Gagabogain. An unknown Gagabogain cannot be an object of desire. In fact, there is no such thing as gagabogan. No amount of coaxing will cause you to get into your car and go and buy gagabogan. But you always have a reason for getting into your car. Some desire is always being fulfilled. Thus, an unknown object does not become an object of desire. Only known objects become objects of desires. There are, of course, some known objects for which you do not have a desire. Scorpions, disease like cancer, and so on. In fact, the more you know of such objects, the more you want to get rid of them. Also, an object that has been known and loved by you need not always be desirable to you. You may have no desire for it whatsoever a few years down the road. No one undertakes a course of action without an end in view. Whether the end is right can only be discovered later. You may change your view or give it up altogether for a variety of reasons. We have all done this. But what is desirable now, you will definitely seek out. Therefore, one who desires a particular end, any artha or kama, does so for his or her own sake. Suppose you say, "No, Swamiji, it is not for my sake, it is for the sake of my son." It only means that your me has become a little extended, but it always reduces to me. Your me can extend to the community in which you live, to your religion, and to your nation also. It is your ego, an extended ego, and more the extensions, healthier the ego. Yet, the end is always for your sake alone. Even if you offer a prayer, for whose sake is the prayer? For God's sake? Is God in such difficulty that you have to pray for Him also? If God requires your prayer in order to survive, then to whom should you pray? If you are praying to God for God's sake, then for God's sake, please give it up. When you say for God's sake, it is only an expression. You do not do anything for God's sake. It is often said that you should serve God. Is it that God has too much work to do that and therefore needs your help? Of course not. Your service and your prayer is for your sake alone. There is nothing wrong with that. If you pray for your mother, father, children, humanity, and all living beings, you do so because you can be happy only if others are happy. How can you be happy if everyone else is unhappy? You see this in games, for instance. In tennis, you always start with love, like marriage, and then fight to the bitter end. One person wins and the other loses. The one who wins throws his or her racket into the air and says, "Wonderful, I won." But the one who loses never throws his or her racket into the air, although it may be thrown to the ground in a gesture of defeat. And when the winner approaches the net, still ecstatic and gasping for breath, to shake hands with the loser, the elation subsides a little because every human heart knows what it is to be on the other side. Thus, when others are unhappy, you cannot be happy. Desiring artha and kama, you then make certain efforts. If these efforts do not seem to be enough, you make another effort called prayer. Prayer is neither artha nor kama, it is dharma. Through prayer, you want to gain some invisible result that will give you artha and kama. Although spiritual seekers do not pray for artha and kama, they do pray for knowledge and maturity, which again is for one's sake alone. This aspect of the human personality is very important and is basic to the vision of Vedanta. We will pick up the thread in the next capsule. Hari Om.